Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. So, for the first lecture today, we are going to look at the initial speech given by the character Edmund in the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2. Now, if you remember, Edmund is the brother of Edgar and the son of Gloucester. And what we will see in the beginning of this scene is what's called a soliloquy. Now, a soliloquy, which I have up here, a soliloquy is a speech given by a character that is their inner thoughts. That is, we get a monologue where we get to see what this character is thinking, their motivations, and we learn more about this character's plans when they're not in front of other characters. So it gives us a lot of insight into the inner workings of the character. In this particular case, the Edmund soliloquy shows the audience that he's preparing to plot against his brother in order to steal his inheritance. So that's kind of the plot element here in the beginning. So it's important to pay attention to the language that he's using to describe how he's going to basically trick his father and his brother into making him the heir. So the basic idea is that he's going to turn his father against his brother using a variety of different tricks and lies and basically deception in order to make this happen. And one of the things that's important to note about this is that he uses things like belief in astrology, his brother's naivete, and a kind of blindness of Gloucester. So Gloucester is basically, he's not really paying attention to anything but himself, and so in this way he's kind of blind. And we know from the earlier talks that blindness is a sign of moral corruption, and Gloucester is not necessarily corrupt, he's just a little bit dopey, I guess. He's just not paying attention. And so Edmund is able to take advantage of him in several different ways. Now, even though Edmund is a, quote, evil character, we do have what I'm calling a sympathetic link. So Edmund is a bastard in a society that gives no rights to bastard sons. So Edmund is basically SOL, as it were, in terms of his place in society. There's no way for him to move up. There's no mobility. He's the bottom rung and will always be. And he's resentful of this because he's very intelligent. He's willing to work hard, and he feels that that should be enough in order to lift him above his birth station. And he kind of rails against the beliefs of the time period, the social beliefs, and so you could call them religious beliefs, this kind of pre-Christian religious beliefs in terms of the order of society. And so he feels that the social structure is repressive or preventing him from actually living out the true rule of nature, which he sees as the survival of the most fit. So in this case, this is contrary to what might be thought of as the traditional social order represented by the king in that hierarchy, that kind of nature, the moral nature. But for Edmund, he sort of wants to be part of what might be thought of as the animal nature, where his ability to sort of prey upon and outsmart and outwit his opponents should allow him to rise in society, and he lives in a very strict, structured society that prevents that. So that's kind of the sympathetic link. It's important to try to empathize with Edmund and understand why he's resentful in his particular situation. Now, you can argue that even though that is his place in society, maybe the actions that he took in order to alleviate his place may or may not have been, at least as Shakespeare is presenting them, of the best moral quality. But that is definitely something that can be up for debate. So we're going to go line by line here, and we're just going to point out a few things that are important, and I'm going to use the blue text here in order to kind of point out any notes that we should be paying attention to. Okay, so Edmund says, "Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound." So here he's just implying that he wants to follow the rule of nature. He's calling on a goddess. In some versions, the N in nature is actually capitalized. So he's basically calling upon the natural order, the goddess nature. And remember, we looked at those slides of the different Greek and Roman deities, the goddesses of agriculture, goddess of the hunt. So this idea that Mother Nature is a figure by which people can dedicate their lives, or basically dedicate the motivation for what it is that they're going to do. So he sees his actions, he sees himself as basically following the natural law. And it's a bit ironic because he actually, we'll see him sort of make fun of several other characters who are religious in this way. So in some sense, it's ironic for him to be calling upon a goddess at this time when he sort of just turns around and makes fun of other people. But that's okay. "Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom, and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me, for that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother." So here he's railing against the social custom of the time, the plague of custom. He's calling the social custom a plague. And the curiosity of nations. So this is the social order, basically. The curiosity of nations is the social order which prevents him from moving up in society. And so that's what this is. Deprive means to take away. "For that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother." So he's 12 to 14 months. This is, right, moon comes every month, so this is just a fancy phrase for month. And then he's just like, okay, well, why am I a bastard? Wherefore base, which is like base, you can think of bottom. So things that are base are low, morally speaking, or otherwise. There's a lot of sort of like play on the concept of base as like the bottom and the floor, but also like bottom feeders and the lowest of social order, and also animals are base in that sense. So this term is pretty important. "When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind is generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue." So here he's like, look, I'm good enough. I'm just as good as these other people. I was born human being just like them. In fact, it's probable that I'm more talented, smarter, better looking, better than them. So I actually should be able to top them, because so what? Who cares when I was born or into what social station I was born? I'm better, therefore I should be able to get ahead. Why? He's questioning why they call us base, with baseness, bastardy, base. It's a really interesting set of sounds going on here. Again, a play on the word base. And here he's kind of making fun of the cheating nature of how he was conceived. Who in the lusty stealth of nature? So a secretly having sex here. "Take more composition and fierce quality than doth within a dull, stale, tired bed. Go to the creating a whole tribe of fops, got tween asleep and wake." Okay, let's read that again. "Who in the lusty stealth of nature take more composition and fierce quality than doth within a dull, stale, tired bed. Go to the creating a whole tribe of fops, got tween asleep and wake." So this is kind of a mouthful of a paragraph. Basically what's happening here is Edmund is just saying that it doesn't matter how he was created, and he's sort of railing against his parents and being like, they're just in their stupid bed where they created all of these fools. Then I also happen to be born, so that seems really unfair, because I'm way better than all these fools. The whole tribe of fops that were gotten between sleep and awake, right? So this is another sexual innuendo here. And basically he's saying, I'm way better than all those other fools that my parents created. His father and the maid or whatever that he was cheating with. So, well then, legitimate Edgar. So now he's turning to his brother. Well then, I must have your land. So, well, if the law is not going to be changed, then I'm just going to take your land for myself. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. So, legitimate here, he's talking about how legitimate versus illegitimate, the one who can receive the inheritance. And he's sort of railing against who gets to decide who is actually the legitimate son. So Edmund he wishes that society were structured in a way that he could prove himself to be the worthy heir, right? So if he had to compete against Edgar, then he's like, well, I would obviously win. I would obviously win because I'm the better son. But as it were, Gloucester doesn't really care and sort of just blindly follows the social structure of the time. So, well, and here we get, this is important. So what he's doing here, well, I'm the legitimate, that's what he says. Well, I'm the legitimate if this is what he's going to do. This letter speed and my invention thrive. So his plot here, what he's about to do is he wrote a letter, to pretend that Edgar, okay, his brother, is going to kill Gloucester and receive the inheritance prematurely. So Edmund wrote a fake letter that basically incriminates Edgar as trying to get his inheritance prematurely. So that's kind of the plot. Edmund's gonna, in a very comical way, he's gonna have the letter in front of him and pretend to hide it when Gloucester comes in. So Gloucester gets really suspicious and it's like, well, what's that you got over there? And Edmund's like, oh, nothing at all. Gosh, what? Oh, a letter. What is this? Gee, I don't know. Maybe you should read it. And Gloucester's like, let me see that. And Edmund's like, no, it's nothing. And Gloucester's like, give me the letter. And so Edmund just sort of was like, oh, no, don't read it, and gives it to him, and Gloucester reads it and is like, hey, what the hell? Anyways, we'll see that in that next section. But it's kind of a comedic scene. So anyways, Edmund says, okay, my invention, that's his little trickery that he's using. That's his letter that he's talking about. He's so smart, this Edmund, it's kind of ironic, right? So he's trying to outwit and outsmart his opponents and for his personal gain, and we'll see how well he's able to do that. Edmund the base shall top the legitimate, right? So here's another spatial kind of pun. Base, the bottom, shall go over on top of the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now, God, stand up for bastards. So here he's finishing out his scene in a strong finale. He's calling on the gods. Now, be just. If you really care about people, then stand up for us bastards. Okay, so just a quick review of the important pieces. The first thing is that his soliloquy reveals the plot. He's going to trick Gloucester and his brother Edgar into basically Gloucester's going to give him the inheritance. Edmund wants to make himself the heir. Edmund opposes the social order of the time. He feels it's unjust. That bastards should have no inheritance rights. Right, so he doesn't think it's fair that he has to be always the lowest person in society. Edmund seems to live by the animal world rule of might makes right. So it's not necessarily might, but it's his ability to outsmart, outwit his opponents, including the use of deception. So we'll see later in the scene. We already know about the letter, but we'll also see later in the scene how he uses Gloucester's belief in astrology, the general naivety of his brother, and this kind of just a not paying attention type Gloucester, who that's how he's going to take advantage of them. Okay, until next time.